send it to PayPal@marketingsignals.com.
Hey. Hey guys, we are live right now. We've just been chatting with the guests, so we were having a good conversation. Anyway, we are live with the Semrush webinar series, Show Me the Links. And I am your host, Julie Joyce. Glad to be here with my guests. I've got some great guests today I'm very excited about, especially as a couple of them don't seem to do this kind of thing a lot, which makes me very happy that they agreed. So we've got Gareth Hoyle, Garrett French, and Ross Tavendale. So if you guys could, I'll get Gareth to start. If you could just give us an introduction about yourself, who you are, what you do, that sort of thing.
Of course. So I'm Gareth Hoyle, based just south of Manchester in the UK. I've been running link building agencies for the last 10 to 12 years. I have seen pre-Penguin. I've seen the fallout from it. I then co-founded a software tool that fixed a lot of your Penguin issues. And now we sell the replacement links for those that you've disavowed. Very rarely do I come on camera on the screen, so you're privileged today. And I have to say, hi, Freddie. Hopefully my 6-year-old son is watching at home. If my wife has figured out how to get this on the telly.
Well, hi, Freddie.
Hi,
Garrett.
Fred.
Hi, folks. Garrett French. I'm with Citation Labs. We've been building links for, we're a links-only agency, been building links for about 7 or 8 years. So I'm actually really excited to hear from Gareth today. He's been in it for, that's a many internet lifetimes that he's been building links. So excited to hear from him. Excited for the webinar today. I think there's a lot to be said for when you have limitations of budget, there's a lot of creativity that can that you're forced to implement. So excited to dig in on this topic today.
Excellent. All right, Ross.
Hey, my name is Ross Tavendale. I'm the managing director of a company called Type A Media, who are a team of SEO consultants based in London, just outside London Bridge. When it comes to link building, I'm what you'd call an ideologue, in that we only do what you'd kind of call digital PR or kind of content marketing type stuff. But interestingly, I cut my teeth using a bunch of tools that actually Garrett built. So this for me is actually really fun for me. And I'm looking forward to batting about some ideas and seeing what you guys think.
Oh, excellent. I did have a question I forgot to add on when I wanted you to introduce yourselves. Can you each, I guess we'll go in the same order. What did you do before you got into SEO? Gareth, did you do anything before SEO?
Yeah.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah. I've had a few jobs over the years, shall we say, ranging from a bartender in a lap dancing club all the way through to a social engineer chasing people trying to hide from their debts. The reason I got into SEO, though, was I used to work in a bathroom retail store, and I'd spend all day pricing it up, measuring it up, and then these people would go and Google it. So I decided that there must be more to the internet than asking girls ASL on AOL. So I went to learn about SEO. So I went to university, learned how to code, and yeah, here we are. What seems like a lifetime ago. Here we are now. So yeah, I think it's the best decision I ever made, getting involved with SEO and specifically links, as my bank manager would attest to.
Very nice. Interesting you said that about the bartender, because when we first started, we looked for bartenders to hire because we thought, they were really good at dealing with people. And some of them, they turned out to be some of the best link builders we ever had. So good background.
They're tenacious. Yes,
they are tenacious. It's a good word for it. All right, Garrett, what about you? Anything family friendly you can talk about?
Yeah, I've got some friendly stuff. I started in 2001 at a newsletter company. So at the time, they had multiple newsletters, but one list that was about 400,000 strong, and they were all webmasters. And they handed me the keys. So I'm just out of college, and this, I've got the keys to this list, and there was not a lot of editorial oversight. So it was a wonderful and really fun place to start working. And what people wanted to hear about, the only thing my readers wanted to hear about at the time was SEO. And so I started going onto forums and kind of reporting on forums, and then going to the few of the industry events that were going on at the time. I think it was just Search Engine Land was the only one that I can recall. There's a handful that kind of popped up all around that time, and covered those, and so really got into the industry that way from ultimately a back door, not really knowing anything about doing SEO, just kind of covering it, and then was at a SEO agency for a bit, and then that it imploded. It was the largest in the world at the time. It was out of North Carolina, and then started a link building agency and a couple tools, and here I am.
That's awesome. You got lucky. I'm sure you worked hard too, of course, but yeah, that's a good first job.
Yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Ross?
Oh, because I'm a fresh-faced young whippersnapper, I've actually only ever worked in search. So my first professional job was with a agency called Digitas LBI, or part of the Publicis Group, and I literally cut my teeth on. We get dropped into like the TripAdvisor account as my first.
Oh, wow.
So it was like you know, trial by fire.
Yes.
But before search, like, I'm kind of slightly unemployable. I suppose that's why I've ran businesses for the last kind of 10 years. Started selling potpourri at the tender age of 15. I lived in near a forest. And
was that last year, Ross?
That was literally last year. I'm actually 50. This moisturizer is just
You're looking good.
Yeah, it's that acai tea stuff that you see getting promoted. I'm all over it. Yeah, so I just done a bunch of little enterprises, you know, wheeling and dealing and selling things door to door when I was a kid to get some pocket money, which I eventually bought my first kind of domains with. Started becoming an affiliate, and then just the usual SEO stories, buying a slightly bad adult domain, thinking I'm going to be the next kingpin, and it not working. So getting a real job.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I asked. That's some interesting backgrounds. So I'm going to go ahead and start diving in, as we have a ton of questions, and I know we're going to take some from the live chat. So if any of the panelists see a question, just feel free to interrupt me. The first question I have, since we're talking about, you know, smaller budgets, what are your favorite free or low-cost tools to use? And Gareth, do you want to start?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, the biggest challenge when people say to me low cost is define low cost. I mean, if you think you can get a basic Majestic account for $50 a month, like, if you can't get that account working for you at $50 a month, you're doing it wrong. In terms of free tools that we look at using for trying to build links, Google, LinkedIn, like just thinking on your feet. The phone is quite a good link building tool that many people overlook. But then we do try and look for more all-around tools. So a big fan of Semrush, of course. Things like Ahrefs. Tools that allow me to spy on my competitors' links are always nice for us, because if it's working for them, it'll probably work for us. So yeah, if I was to give my answer, I would say Google, LinkedIn, and the phone. But then if we're going to spend a bit of money, Majestic at $50 a month. Ahrefs is $99 a month. Semrush, I can't imagine is much different from that $99 a month as a basic account. And really, if you're finding that $99 a month is too much for a tool, then I believe you're doing this job wrong.
That's a good answer. Garrett, what about you?
Well, I'll second Gareth's Google suggestion. I think that's hands down probably the tool I use the most, primarily for prospecting. So we're often looking for large volumes of publishers, and nothing right now beats it in terms of just being a waiting database of opportunities. So along with that is knowing some advanced operators, which maybe we can include a doc. I can include a link for reference after the video, but and then just your email address, and then I like the LinkedIn suggestion. We haven't started using that for link building, just for lead gen right now, but I think there's a big relationship between lead generation and link building. It's just lining up prospects, making sure you're pitching something that is useful to them. But so as far as free, I mean, Google and your email are hands down the ones we couldn't live without. Paid tools, I think we've got subscriptions to just about all of them, or all the link graph tools. We have subscriptions we use every day at our agency. Let's see, Semrush, of course, too. But I think it's really kind of a throwaway answer just to say Google, but the point is, if you know who you're targeting and what you're promoting, then it's really is your best tool, potentially the only tool you need, depending on what kind of scale you require to move the needle on your project, whatever project you're working on. So Google and email, and then whatever else you think you might have budget for, or if there's a tactic you want to try out. But if you're just getting started, I wouldn't even. I mean, you could go into a Majestic, in that direction for sure. I use that quite a bit, but don't start complicated. Go as simple as you can.
I really agree with that too. And our link builders usually, I mean, it's Google. That's what they're looking at. They don't use tools for the most part. So I think they find really good stuff that way.
Well, and then it's like each tool has different tactics that it'll support or that it'll enable. So we're also talking about what tactics should you be starting with on a low budget. So, but yeah, I'll probably think of others as soon as Ross starts talking. Go ahead, Ross.
So
all right, Ross.
The thing is, guys, so it's like the entire line of you guys nail all the good answers and then to the end of the rubbish.
Sorry.
You can start next time, Ross.
All right, I'll go slightly left of field. So if you've got $100 and you need tools, there's a couple of things in link building that you need to engineer. First thing is sign off from the person who holds purse strings, not only just to get budget for your campaigns, but actually to say yes to your campaigns. If you've got a big PR idea, it's probably a CEO that needs to sign it off. So take your first $50, take them to the pub, get them some beers, and then sell them the idea of your stories and get them bought into you as a link builder and into your ideas. I love, and I still use it actually, a tool called All My Tweets. Have you guys used All My Tweets?
No.
All My Tweets is essentially if you put in anyone's Twitter handle, it just pulls every single tweet that they've ever put on without it, just like a massive big data dump. And you do Control F to find like email signature stuff. So if you're trying to find contact information, that's a nice one. Again, footprints, I like to pick particular websites. So the Associated Press is a big place where tons and tons of news is kind of syndicated. I like using site commands on places like the Associated Press with a bunch of different footprints so I can actually see who's writing about this particular keyword, this particular topic, who's getting syndicated, who's not. So this is more of a prospecting type thing. And in terms of kind of cheap/free, SEO tools for Excel is good for kind of basic data manipulation as well. There's a ton out there. So for me, Excel, I love All My Tweets, advanced kind of footprints and search functions, but starting with a domain to run my kind of search functions.
Okay.
I think just to back up what Ross was saying about the tweets, just setting up a nice IFT recipe to just scrape hashtags and stick it into a Google Doc, that works really well. And that will cost you nothing and take you 10 minutes. Very
true. Well, since we're talking about costing nothing, I have a question. Are there any good free directories worth submitting to anymore? What do you guys think? Gareth?
So less than 20 in the UK specifically. We tend to use the directories mainly for NAP mentions these days for local SEO. So we're talking yell.com or the Yellow Pages, things like that. The only sort of directories that we're looking at for our customers these days are there any supplier directories? Occasionally you'll find alumni discount directories. They usually work well for getting .edu or .ac.uk links. Staff discount directories. If you're an e-commerce retailer and you've got discount codes, why not offer the military a discount? And there will be a directory of military-friendly companies out there. But, I mean, you're talking to a man that in 2011 sold 1 million directory links, and then in 2013 sold the removal of 300,000 of them. So I know quite a lot about directories. And personally, we just don't touch them. They're not, other than if they're going to drive any traffic or if they're going to have an influence on our name, address, and phone number listings, then we'd use them. But I would say my answer has to be less than 20, really.
Gotcha. What about you, Garrett? Anything you ever use?
We don't ever do any directory link building at all. I think just we're typically building links to client content, or in some cases sales pages, and so it's not usually a fit for the projects we're taking on. But I think they're absolutely worth investigating for the potential of lead generation. There's a number of verticals where they are still, I think, kind of actively sending leads, and certainly exist in certain verticals. I think it's a vertical by vertical kind of or case by case.
Yeah.
Whether you even look for them or not, whether you consider them. Yeah, and I would look less for the directory and more for like the business associations or professional association type organizations that might be out there. Those will have great lists on them. In some cases, if you're in that vertical or in that trade. So, but yeah, we haven't really pursued them or thought too much about them for a long time.
Right.
They're still, but it would depend on your vertical, and certainly when it comes to a budget, it's often a great place to spend a couple $100 if it's the right, if it's your vertical, if it's your space, and being there makes a difference between appearing professional and not.
Right. All right, Ross.
Yeah, that's just to echo what the guys have said. So I mean, if it's true,
I'm gonna have to start with you.
We'll just skip you. You can just say skip if you want.
I'm sorry.
no. So if it's trade-based publications, sometimes it's weird. If the industry's quite small, it's weird if you're not in the directory. So an example is we take care of someone who sells wholesale meat products, who said SEO is not glamorous, and they essentially there's a publication called The Meat Trader. Which if you're not in it, semantically you just need to be in it because it's like their Wikipedia of their industry. Same with education. Like there's a main magazine in the UK called TES, which is a directory of educators. It's almost like when you get agency certified for analytics and AdWords, you hit a directory on Google actually, and it's actually a live link onto the site. Moz actually has a directory of trusted suppliers as well. So I think, yeah, industry-based stuff, but more as a badge of honor or something to validate you as quality within the industry, not so much for passing PageRank and things like that. I'm sure it does, but much like Garrett, we just run PR kind of pieces for our clients.
Right, gotcha. Well, I'm going to start with you again now. Get you again so you don't have to follow everybody. Should you bother pursuing no-followed links if you're talking about a really small budget? You think they're going to make an impact?
Yeah, so I mean, when I think of links, I think of, so you've got obviously like things that pass PageRank. When I think about it, I use the majestic metrics of trust flow and citation flow. So, are you going to shy away from a link on the BBC or CNN or the Wall Street Journal because it's no followed? Probably not, because the trust signals that that's pushing are going to be worth something. When you ask a Googler, they're always like, yeah, but it passes absolutely no PageRank, and that's what they say. It doesn't pass any link power. But what you need to think around what they say, because they talk in riddles. So, yeah, I get it. It doesn't pass that little bit. But what about the rest? What about the trust signals coming from that? Google's got a seed list of a couple of thousand websites that are in the trusted list where Googlebot starts the crawl. Surely that's a good thing if you get a link, regardless of no follow or do follow.
I agree. What about you, Garrett?
Our clients don't like to pay for them. So we often don't pursue them, but I think they're a natural part of every link graph. And I think that not pursuing them because they are no follow is, there's potential traffic benefit or audience facing benefit and branding potentially also. So we're looking at some of the non-search values of link building, which I think, especially when you're on a budget, is very important, because that's part of increasing the value of your work, is a way to, if there is that brand value, then the link you've built is then worth more money. Or if there is traffic that actually comes from that link, then there is, this work is worth more of your time to do. But that said, the no value portion of it removes some of the search. But I say get them. I say get every link you can. Essentially, as long as it's not going to cause harm, there's no reason not to pursue a lower value link. Now, not all my clients agree with that, and we follow the dictates of our clients. But that said, I think if it's especially if it's a relevant site, a no follow is perfectly fine. And then as Ross was saying, if it's CNN, yeah, why get it. Yeah, hit that link, whether it's no follow or not.
Right. Gareth, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's quite difficult going third, isn't it? So
now you feel his pain.
I feel the pain. So the notes that I made on this question was one line. If it sends traffic, hell yeah. If it gives a nice NAP mention for local, hell yeah.
Oh yeah. The phone number or address. Good point. Yeah. Good point.
Okay, we've got a question from the chat. How can you build links using photos, infographics, and videos? Like how could you do that, and how could you get like some good followed links for using those? Gareth, you want to take that?
Yeah, of course. So dependent on the quality of your infographic, photo, or video, look at seed sites. So if it's something interesting to a specific community, maybe they're on Reddit, maybe they're on Quora, which was mentioned earlier. Maybe you can seed it via Medium. So I'd probably try and avoid. I remember back in the day, there was things like infographics or Visually and places like this where we would just basically dump any old infographic and just pray that somebody picks it up. Nobody did. What happened? Maybe it was the crap content. But if you've got something interesting to say and you've visualized it or you've done a video, I mean, I can only imagine the number of embeds this webinar is going to get for us all, guys.
Thousands.
Billions. I think
Billions.
We're going to be creating link issues all over the world. But no, if you have good content and it's actually interesting to the audience that you're trying to put it in front of, seed it to Reddit, because you know what? Those guys will let you know if it's rubbish. They'll also let you know if it's good. But it has to stand on its own 2 feet. I mean, you can always pay a blogger to feature it. There's a way around everything. But if you're looking at low budget and you've spent all your money on production, then seed it on a few places, like I've just mentioned, and see what you get for now.
Okay. Ross, do you want to go?
Yeah, I want to tell you a horror story just to kick off this one. So in my old agency, who I think I actually already named, so this is probably a bit awkward, we spent £50,000 creating a moving infographic. You could take a picture of yourself. It was like a circuit of a Formula One track, and you could move around it and things like that. And we got, would you like to guess how many links we got for that, guys? Would you like to
None.
Got none?
I'd say one.
One?
50.
50. You're so nice. We got 2. One of which was from my personal blog, and the other was from the client's travel enthusiasm blog. So when it comes to spending money on creative, just the story leads all the time. So you get an infographic that's a bit rubbish. I would actually start chopping it up and see if I could pull out any interesting data on it. The amount of times a client will give me an infographic or a white paper and be like, we done an industry white paper on boring subject Y. We're like, oh, okay. So what we do from there is we try and take a fork of that out and look at government databases, university databases, new studies, and put them together to make something actually interesting, and just use that as a kind of byline, supplementary piece of data to kind of promote it. Other things, use TinEye to obviously track images going around the place. Google reverse image search helps. If you're changing your logo, so one of the things we've done for, it only kind of works if you're a larger brand, so perhaps this is out for low budget. When Airbnb changed their logo, there's a ton of places using the logo. So there's a bunch of things you can do with it. But when it comes to infographics, unless you're really spending a good amount of money and it's like actually engaging in the story leads really nicely, I would tend to just keep it to plain text content because it's easier to produce and push.
Okay, cool.
We also find, sorry, just to interrupt, as I'm quite good at doing that. we often find that with our clients, it's almost like they spent so much money on the TV ad, they had no budget left to buy the slots. So maybe that's a way of thinking about how much of the budget you should spend on creative versus how much you should spend on actually outreaching and marketing the asset.
Right. That's a good point. Garrett, what about you? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I really like the idea of kind of parceling out any given infographic into smaller chunks. I think thinking in terms of rather a single enormous kind of swing for the fences infographic, I'd like to see either embeddable portions, like a chopped up infographic where, you know, there's kind of complete ideas in each section. It can all kind of hang together on a single page. But as long as I as the link builder can portion it out or take out little chunks to illustrate, for example, in a guest placement somewhere, or on, you know, kind of smaller, more audience specific pitches, I think that's something I would definitely be looking for. Is, you know, in a lot of these, we don't ever do infographics. They terrify me. I'm not a viral person. I don't know or understand that world. I admire it, but we don't ever do it. But we have done really small, you know, kind of supporting graphics that explain a point really clearly, or kind of, you know, either or a very frequently given bit of advice in any given how-to space we're writing into, like how to walk your dog or what have you. We'll make a little kind of, so we don't have to keep writing the same thing over and over. Make a little infographic to say, here's how to put the leash on the dog, or something. You know, something that really illustrates a very small point very precisely. I think can sometimes be as effective to get a single link out of. Now, again, we're not doing anything Reddit. I'm a lurker only. Like it terrifies me to think of posting something. So we don't ever go for big plays or like the 1% of media, you know, the CNNs and that sort of thing. We're always looking for how do we get definite links and get everywhere, kind of saturate everywhere except the big places. But I do think that infographics can support that, especially if you're kind of chopping them out. Videos might be a little tougher in that kind of scenario, but they certainly are. We've used them, we've embedded them in guest placements before when they support a position or they support a assertion in the article. I think they have a natural place there. And then, yeah, photos. I've heard a number of tactics around using photos. We haven't scaled or executed around just using photos, but certainly looking to see if people have used your photo, asking for credit, I think is a really strong one. And probably you could do memes if you're good at that kind of thing. I'm not. I think they're funny, but I don't get them or do them. And so potentially, if you're in a small enough vertical, or you could start making funny pictures. Maybe, I don't know. That might be cheap. If you're a funny person, that could be a way forward as well.
That's good. Well, I'm glad I pulled that question because I got a lot of cool ideas from you guys. All right, next one. Experts often suggest you build links from people you already know, or in other words, work your network to build links. What are the best practices for this effort? Gareth, would you like to start that one?
Of course. I mean, we build links between ourselves, but don't forget, as digital marketers, we're a lot more active online and we actually understand the value of a link. Whereas if I was to go to my local cricket club and ask them to email the next town along cricket club, they probably don't even know the login to the website. So it's not always that easy. If we're going to do this, then be nice, because they might not understand why you're asking for what you're asking for.
Or what you're asking, yeah.
Exactly. But I would also look at converging your offline communities with your online communities, because even the local bridge club probably has a website. So if you can help them out, if you're a member of the club, then maybe they can feature you as a featured player. But more, I must admit, we don't do. My network is very much sort of SEO related, and I think if I emailed any of my SEO friends and asked them for a link, they would just send me a meme back. Bastards.
What about you, Ross?
Well, so you're asking if you should contact people that you know and you're friendly with first and foremost. So I just work all the time, so I don't actually have any friends apart from anyone who's in the search community. So that's out for me. In terms of, you ever heard the phrase, like, you've got this little black book of journalists and contacts? Have you ever heard that kind of phrase? I think that is completely dead. And I think the way in which media is now monetized makes it dead, because if you think about your average journalist, they're creating 8 pieces per day. They're mostly going freelance. So if you subscribe to any of those things like Gorkana or Muckrack or anything like that, which is the database of journalists, every day there's like 50 changing jobs or going freelance. So the idea of like having that little black book of contacts with people you know is changing so rapidly that I think it's quite disingenuous now. So a lot of PR agencies will say, oh, no, we've got the contacts. I'm like, no one's really got the contacts anymore, to be honest. You might have a couple, but I don't think that exists anymore. So I just don't think you need it to the same degree. Everyone's going freelance. Everything's being squeezed from a media point of view. And as long as you're pitching them a good story that fits their beat, you're golden. You don't need to know them. And actually pretending to know them. You ever done those emails like, oh, hey, I read the last 5 things you've done. I think you're amazing.
All the time.
Your new cat looks so lovely. Like, is he called Mr. Whiskers? Like, just don't do that. It just goes straight in for the kill. They're busy, you're busy. We know this is a commercial exchange already. There's no need to pretend that you're best pals. Maybe send them a nice Starbucks gift card if they publish it, just to keep them on the good side. But apart from that, I don't think you need to, go to your friends first.
Okay. What about you, Garrett?
So we, I run another agency called ZipSprout. Also, we focus just on local link building, and we did a quick study of the most frequently given advice in the space, and like the 3rd or 4th most frequent one was get links from people you know, work your network. And so what we found was missing was a real kind of process-oriented approach to doing this. Now, this is I'm just talking about small local businesses here. So this is a whole different world from what Ross was just talking about, where you're working a network of publishers at larger or reporters at larger agencies. But I think first and foremost, you're asking, do they have websites? Are they in control of the websites? And that is going to help you weed out a lot of people right off the bat. And if you're not asking that question, then you're really doing this part of the work wrong. So do they have websites? Secondarily, what are you giving to facilitate the link? So the easiest thing is just like a review of them that they can put on their site, or a trusted vendor badge that they could put on their site. Because you're really trying to think in the context of this local ecosystem. What is going to make them look good? What are they going to understand? Right? Because asking for someone to link with no kind of value in that exchange, you're going to have a lot of non-responses. So you're really looking for, how do I create value for them? And the simplest way is to do a review, a testimonial, ask if you can publish on their blog, ask for a guest post, that sort of thing. But I think that's the way to kind of work your local, or if you're a local business or, relatively small, I think that's the way to work your network. So it really is, not everyone has a website, and to Garrett's point, not everybody knows how to update it or even log into the thing. So we see a lot of that in our work too. But anyhow, that's what I would suggest.
Okay, great. Can you get really good links for free if you are not working with amazing content? Ross, do you want to start with that one?
Oh, that is a belter of a question. Can you get it for free if you're not working with amazing content? Yeah, of course, but then that would be purely networked. So, for example, we have an events company that we deal with, and they've got friends at the local football stadiums up and down the UK. So they can just pick up the phone and be like, hey, can you just add us? You can just beg and ask, and then it'll happen. The likelihood of it happening is a lot lower, and it's certainly not something that we tend to employ a lot. Because I find that if you're doing sort of like just asking and not giving any sort of value exchange, the best you can hope for if you just ask for something for free is one link, which is fine, but that's a lot of effort. Whereas if you're building something that's actually interesting and giving it to people with some sort of networked effect in these kind of publications, whether it be newspapers or magazines, that effort could be multiplied by quite a bit. Think of it the way venture capitalists invest in companies. If they invest in 10, they need 1 to work, and they've absolutely killed it for that year. That's the way we think about our link building strategies. Like, we want really mediocre results for most of them, and we want 1 to hit amazingly, and that really carries things forward in a big way. So I'm sure you can get it without producing good content just purely by asking. So it makes sense if you're in a particular industry and you're speaking to a comparator. So for example, we have a finance client that does alternative finance, and they have a bunch of accountants that link to them as a source for alternative finance. And that makes sense for them because they're in that same industry. And we literally just email and ask, and you know, the success rate on that is probably about 1 in 20. Wow. So it's a lot of effort for not a lot of links. So you can do it, but it's a lot. It's hard work. You might as well just make the content.
Very true. I'm going to turn this over to Gareth while I go plug up my computer that the cat has just knocked off. So, Gareth, you go ahead, and I'll be back in 10 seconds.
Of course. So, yeah, I mean, the simple answer to the question is no. Can you get really good links for free if you're not working with amazing content? No, because most people know that it's a commercial relationship. You don't necessarily have to pay. Maybe you can donate some time to a scout group and they can feature you on their blog. We used to work with a bathroom retailer, and we would donate tiles so that sports clubs could refurbish, or youth centers can refurbish their bathrooms. So the definition of free I find very difficult, because everything takes time. Like if I'm trying to build links for free, well, who's going to pay my time? Who's going to pay my staff's time? If we're using free as in paying a fiscal transaction, then I think there are ways around it by donating time or resource that maybe the sports club or the youth centre can't afford. But really, my as a man that sells links for a living, my answer is no.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Garrett, what do you think?
So again, what are we talking about when we say free? And I think, you know, we've really focused a lot on building links to sales pages, right? Mm-hmm. Which some would argue is not great content. No offense to anyone, but often it's you know, it's pretty dry. It's a transactional page. You're trying to make a sale. So what we've looked at is how do we get, you know, citable or linkable elements built into sales pages. And so if that can be not great content, right? Like linkable elements or citable, like a fact about a product or a fact about something that this product helps you do, or some kind of data or detail that could be citable, that's something you could certainly work into a guest placement. So can you get great links that way from guest placements to a product page? Pretty good. What do we mean by great, though? We're not going to get on CNN. No, we're not going to get, you know, even on CNN Junior. Or there's no, you're not going to be getting in the big leagues, but you can certainly build a campaign around a sales page, especially if you've built in, we call them citable elements, or something that is noteworthy on the sales page that's worth referencing from a guest placement. Probably unbranded, but you know, we'll talk about that another time.
Can I jump into that as well? I think that's a phenomenal idea. The way that we do that, that exact tactic, is by, if we've got like a really interesting story with a bunch of data tables and a bunch of research that backs it up, we actually just stick it in a PDF and link the PDF from the sales page and direct the person to the sales page where the PDF is. And for some reason, they naturally link to the sales page, not to the PDF. And even if they do link to the PDF, if you really want to be a bit sneaky, you can, well, because all PDF links are follow and they get indexed, so you can just internally link back in, or you can CO1 it and just put another version up. Like there's a million ways around it.
Okay.
Yeah, the anchor link there is really helpful. Just being able to direct the visitor from the link directly to the portion that's relevant to whatever you cited. But yeah, that's And again, I don't know quite what the questioner was asking. You know, like, are they talking about, you know, how-to content that's subpar? Or are they talking about trying to build links to a sales page, what have you? But I think it's possible, but I think it's a lot of work, but so it's not really free, but it's definitely possible.
Okay. A really good question from the chat. And how would you prioritize this? If you're trying to get your site to do well, would you prioritize continuing to blog a lot on the site and hopefully attract links, I guess? Or would you take more time to focus on going after links? Does that make sense? Ross, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, it depends how many eyeballs are on you to begin with. So if you're the industry standard and people are waiting for your quarterly reports to come out, if they're constantly, if you've got a massive social media following, then I'd say probably publishing should be where you should be looking. That being said, the idea of build it and they will come is just complete nonsense. It sometimes works, but in my experience, I've never found that making nice content on blog posts and just doing that ever really works. Like, it always needs some sort of a kickstart. So if you've already got the audience, yep, I think publishing will definitely work. A classic example is a good friend of ours, joint friend, Fabrizio, is the head of SEO at a company called TransferWise. They don't need to do any link building because every time they put any blog post up about what they've just done, they get massive syndication throughout the web. So from their point of view, it's probably better just to produce the content. But if you're a smaller company, it's almost definitely better to spend your time actually doing the promotion.
Okay. What about you, Garrett?
Oh, so I think this isn't the answer they probably wanted, but you're going to have to do both. Should you, I think you could also, if you were planning to write 4 times a month, you could write once a month and then try to write things that are likely to be linkable. So you're going to spend more time studying your market, see what others are doing that seems successful or seems to attract links. Because the thing we often confuse as link builders is, like, the link itself is often an expression of value. Like, hey, this is useful, this is valuable. So when we're link building, especially as SEOs, we're very abstract and we just want the link, but you're creating value for somebody, or else the link doesn't happen, or at least it doesn't happen naturally. Well, there's nothing against unnatural paid links for sure. But that said, so you're I think the question more is, what can I write that will be valuable to others in a way that gets them to share it? So a natural one, again, is just, now these get crapped on quite frequently as a tactic, but the group interview is one that I think is typically done pretty poorly and could be done a lot better, especially if you're kind of working a larger story and you're quoting some people who either might potentially link or are often linked to when they talk, right? So I think that kind of approach could be, I would explore what can we be making that would be naturally linkable to people when we promote it, when we mention it. I think like, if you did a big collection of upcoming either webinars or seminars or conferences in your space, and then you promoted that around to folks who do kind of updates or kind of share industry happenings, that could be another. You're also asking, what is the content that we're creating, or what are we kind of gathering together here that could be widely useful or widely shared? Marie Haynes does an incredible newsletter. It's not she doesn't, this isn't a link building play for her, she charges for a newsletter, but she could publish this thing because it's got 50, 60 kind of that week's SEO news happenings and industry happenings. It's a very useful, very valuable. That's the sort of thing that if she wanted to do it as a link play, she would be getting a lot of links out of that. Instead, she's selling access to it through the newsletter format, and I pay for it because I find it valuable. So I would be looking for kind of a content model that works, that in your industry seems to work for acquiring links, and adapt it to make it easier or simpler, and give it a shot, and really think about, instead of should I spend my time promoting or should I spend my time writing? I think you spend your time writing something that is promotable and worth promoting in your industry, and then also promote it. So you're thinking of all the way through to the end user, essentially, who is the linker, what would be useful to them or valuable to them, and also, of course, valuable to you. So I know I make it sound really simple, but no, I'm just kidding. It's possible, but definitely I would say you need to be doing both.
Right. Good answer. Gareth?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it does depend on the community that you're working in. I know that if I was to publish a blog on the Marketing Signals blog, maybe we'd get 50 hits. But if I was to put it onto LinkedIn, I can maybe get 1,000 eyes on that piece of content. And it's much easier for my peers to share my work on LinkedIn than it is for them to go onto my blog, then click a button and it opens Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, and they've got to press another button. I mean, if we use Garrett's example of four pieces of content a month, maybe you'd put 1 or 2 on your own blog, 1 on an industry news blog, and 1 on LinkedIn. It depends on how far into the future you're looking. I mean, there is a generation of vloggers that speak to themselves via YouTube. And you're going to have to put the legwork in to build your audience, because if you're just entering a new market and no one knows who you are, why are they going to listen to you? So maybe you start slowly creating your own content on your own assets, whilst taking advantage of the social platforms that are out there to try and accelerate your growth in your industry, and then see if you can tap up a few other bloggers or community websites that will allow you to access their audience. The big thing for me is it's trying to get my content in front of the right audience. And if the right audience isn't on my own blog, why would I bother?
Can I jump into that as well? I think that's a very good point that you've just raised. So in our agency, we call that a cope strategy, not a coping strategy. The beer fridge is the coping strategy. The cope strategy is create once, publish everywhere, meaning that you're kind of DJing that content out. Because what we actually find, if we push it in particular social channels, it actually catches the eye. We deliberately follow journalists in the client's niche so that we can make sure they're constantly got their eyes on us. So I really like that as a tactic, that kind of pushing it out onto social as well to stimulate. Sometimes we actually use Twitter ads to stimulate like fake virality around something, because everyone is so desperate to be the first to publish, because they're all monetizing through CPM advertising. So if you can create some level of like fake hysteria around it through Twitter ads, and all you've done is you've just targeted the main journalists and you've said, give me 100% impression share on these people and make them feel like it's massive pressing news. Yeah, I really like that as a tactic.
Okay. Here's a good question, I think, about having no money. You got no money in the world. How can you get featured in the press? Ross, do you want to start with that? Yeah. What could you do that's newsworthy, that's not, I mean, maybe not illegal?
I was going to say, you could just take your trousers off, go to London Bridge and take your trousers off. That'll get you in the press pretty quickly. What could you do to get you in the press? Well, I mean, you could do something do something that's newsworthy, ultimately. That doesn't need to be something like horrific. And that's the first thing we think of, something horrible. If you've done something that's really special, for example, perhaps you've been in an industry for 40 or 50 years, and just contact them and say, we'd like to do an expose on someone, because you're a relevant person in an industry and you've got a lot to say. Ultimately, like, humans are the people that's reading all this stuff. So if you've got something interesting to say, or you're an inspiring figure, or perhaps you've got a cause that you want to promote. For example, let's say you're running for a very niche type of charity. We have a charity in our books that there's a particular type of blood platelet disease. It's the most niche charity that I think I've ever seen. But what we actually do is we look for journalists that tweet about content around blood platelet disease. Now, there's like 3 in the entire world, but those 3 really, really care, like a lot, because they tweet about it. So yeah, finding a good cause and just talking to the people that it's the same rules apply for all of this stuff. make something interesting or do something worthwhile and tell people about it. I know that sounds really basic and really smug, but it's true.
It's true. Garrett, do you have some opinions on that?
None of my own. There's a fellow who did, I can't remember his name now, I'm embarrassed, but he did a presentation on piggybacking news stories. So where essentially you find your own angle on on a story that's happening. Obviously, you have to have some relevance to that story, but then you're contributing some facet of the story to a reporter, and for adding some dimension to the story. So outside of that, essentially there you're still watching the news and very cognizant, and so you're still spending time, right? So you have to observe and read and watch carefully, or else nothing's going to happen. But that would be a thought I would have. I guess there's the Harrow as well, which we haven't really used as an agency at all. But that's something that I know people use a lot as well. Is just to help a reporter out. Okay. I don't know what state now. It could have gone into complete disarray. I haven't used it.
I don't use it either. Okay, Gareth.
So yeah, I mean, if you do something interesting that your industry would like to read and see, as well as the wider national press, there's no reason why you can't get some serious legs out of a local news story. So one that springs to mind was a chap called Ryan Charles was speaking at Search Love in Boston earlier this year. And he works for a moving company based in San Diego. Now, the Chargers announced that they were moving from San Diego to LA, which as a Brit, this blows my mind. Like, why the hell would you move your football team from one city to another? But what Ryan did, he managed to get all the moving companies in San Diego to agree that they're not going to move the Chargers stuff. So they're not going to help them move their clothing, their worldly possessions, because they want him to stay in San Diego. And this thing flew like crazy. He was on TV. He was on the radio. Like, they picked up hundreds and hundreds of links, and it took him 1 day's labor and no money spent, because they just came up with an idea. They spent a bit of time. They spoke to a few other San Diego moving companies. Look, hey guys, we're gonna try this. We're gonna try and newsjack the fact that the Chargers were moving. And what a story. And if you look at the actual cost per link acquired from that story, it's cents to a few dollars. And you're getting picked up by all the local TV stations. He was on TV about this link building campaign. And all he did is he played on the emotions of the people around it. And if you can play on it right, then there's no reason why you need to invest massive money to get in the press. Just do something that's interesting to those around you and that people are passionate about. And I mean, I must admit, it blows my mind. If Manchester United announced that they were moving to London, I think there'd be anarchy up here. Like, I just can't imagine that ever happening. But hey, it's America. You guys move more than we do. So yeah, I suppose my answer to the question is absolutely you can get featured in the press with no money. Just do something that people are interested in.
Very good. Another question here. I get a lot of brand mentions, but no actual links. So what's the value of that, and what should you do about it? Garrett, you want to start that one?
Send them an email and ask for a link. Mm-hmm. That's what you should do.
Amen.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to add any more to that.
What is a good tactic with that? Because, I've heard of a lot of people trying to do that, and, they send the email saying, you mentioned me, but you didn't link to me. I mean, or what's the success rate? Anybody have any numbers on that?
We've got some very hard numbers on that. So we have a FTSE 250 finance company on our books. And they're getting maybe about 400 or 500 branded mentions with no links on a monthly basis. We're converting about 20% of the emails we send, and we find the shorter and the more curt direct emails, the better. But the real secret, and I'm not super comfortable about sharing this, but in the spirit of sharing, find the IT manager of that website as well as the journalist who originally posted it. The reason I say that is because it's not a journalist's job to edit links and change web pages. It's the IT manager of that particular establishment. So if you email the IT manager and CC the journalist, there's some weird social conditioning thing that just makes them be like, did you say I should do this? Do I need to do this? Oh, I should do this. Oh, am I in trouble if I don't do this? And because it's the journalist's name in there, they just do it. And if anyone gets emails from our agency and they're in the finance sector, thank you and I'm sorry I've just revealed that secret.
That's I'm doing that. We're going to do that. Thank you, Ross. I'm going to ruin that for you. I don't know what, I think we're getting close to 20% for a client who asked us to do this, and it's not a core competency. We didn't set out to do this as an agency, but we've been asked to do it along the way, and I don't think we're getting to 20, but I think it's above above 10 for sure. And another one is just that they'd acquired a company also, and so we had an opportunity to say, hey, go back to all the links that had previously gone to the former company and say, hey, you should update your story and update the link. This should go here now. And so we had some good success with that as well. So there's lots of kinds of, I guess, company events that constitute a good reason to send an email out. To previous linkers or previous publishers or previous authors. Okay,
Gareth.
Well, I must admit, our outreach methodologies are so good that this very rarely happens to us.
Congratulations.
Is that a wide-angle lens in the camera? That is some ego. I love it.
But what I will say is quite often, if we're doing a tactical PR campaign, maybe we've said that 87% of people did X, or 301 out of the surveys did something, and we get a lot of citations to our study, but no link to it. So give them a reason to link. Give them a PDF of the data set. Give them an infographic, which just visualizes that data that you're trying to... I suppose the way I look at this is, does the reader on the publication where we're featured require a link? Because we do a lot of PR and we get a lot of brand mentions. I haven't got any hard facts like the 20% that Ross mentioned on the PR side of stuff, but we found that we get a much higher link rate, if you like, if we give the journalist something to link to. Occasionally they'll link to the homepage because they're just referencing the business, but you will get a lot more links for your time if you give them something to link to. And it could just be a 1 hour infographic. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. Like normally what we try and do there is give them the PDF, because for whatever reason, journalists and publishers don't always see the PDF as being a link. And of course, once the story's run its legs, you can always just 301 the PDF into a money page. Job done.
Right. All right, we have 2 minutes to go. So, did you have more to add? I'm sorry.
No, I just thought that was a fantastic idea.
Oh, yeah, very good idea. So 2 minutes, see how many questions we can get. 2 weeks ago in Webmaster Hangouts, John Muller said that PR links are rubbish and will get discounted. Should I stop doing PR or relying on this as a tactic? What do you guys think? Ross, you want to go with that first?
Yeah, that is, I was literally about to say that's fake news, but I know it's a bit of a sensitive thing to say such things nowadays. So yeah, newswire stuff where you create a press release and you just blast it onto some self-serving thing where it surfaces a link, probably getting discounted anyway, but the function of actually taking a press release to get it into a journalist's inbox, that's the whole point of a press release. So like typical like PR web, PR newswire links, yeah, they're getting discounted. They're pretty much worthless. But the function of actually getting into these places, no, that's totally legitimate. Googlers talk in riddles. We love them to bits. We think they're wonderful people, but ultimately you got to think around what they're saying.
Right. Garrett, have anything?
I mean, he was talking about the press releases not having SEO value. Sure, I don't. Yeah, I think they haven't for a long time. We don't do PR at all. At Citation Labs, so we don't really look at we haven't done them for ages. We've done one here and there, but we just didn't do them anyways. But I think if you can write a press release that actually gets reporters to do something, then the last place you're at is the wires anyways, like, that's a remarkable talent to be able to write an effective press release. And so why not put them on a newswire as well after your story has gone out? Again, I'm out of my school. This isn't a space I really know, but I see no harm in them. Just don't go to them for links or to try to impact your search. Okay.
Gareth, you want to close this out with your answer?
Absolutely. I cancelled my PR web account in 2012. Never looked back. A lot of the time we write press releases to email to journalists. Why would we want to publish them somewhere? Like we're using them to engage journalists in a conversation with us. If anything, the press release is really just a statement of facts of what we've discovered or what we've surveyed. If you are still using stuff like PR wires, where it is spam, let's be honest, and that's quite rich coming from me, I understand that. You're doing it wrong, guys. You know what? Cancel the subscription. Spend the time you spend copying and pasting that crappy press release into Windows, and improve the press release and put it into an email shot to some relevant journalists, and you'll get much more bang for your buck.
Very good. Well, we are out of time. I appreciate you guys. We've had some really good questions, and every time I end one of these, I feel like I should do another one with the same people and get through more questions. So this is very enlightening, very good webinar. And usually I tell everyone that if they have a question about anything any of us said, reach out in some way on Twitter or whatever. So you guys just look any of us up on Twitter if you have any more questions or comments. And I appreciate everybody here, everybody asking the questions. Sorry if we didn't get to your question. Hope you'll join us next time. Thanks, you guys.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
Julie.
Bye.
See you soon, guys.
Cheers.